You're listening to I Have Some Notes, a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported.
Hey Scott, I have a movie pitch for you. I want to do a Charlie's Angels movie.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's been a long time since we've seen them. I think that's a franchise that's ripe for a good remake.
Oh, no, not a remake. We're gonna make it part of the canon.
Okay, I have some notes.
Welcome, everyone, to I Have Some Notes, the movie podcast where we keep, cut, punch up, and tweak mediocre movies as voted by you. I'm your host, Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver.
And today we are discussing the 2019 film Charlie's Angels, and we are joined by our, again, now a regular guest. Proud to call this person a regular guest from the Alberta Podcast Network, Quantum Kickflip. And from previous episodes of this show, please welcome Glenna Showalter.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Yes, thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me back. Happy to lend my voice.
Yeah, this is episode 2 of a new season, and it's, ooh boy, what a season. Ooh boy.
Now, Glenna, the last time you were on, we were reviewing a pretty awesome women-led action flick. And this one is a decidedly not awesome one. So how are you feeling?
I feel like my discerning tastes will be put to good use.
Yep, good answer.
Yeah, good answer indeed. I guess I want to start off, like, I was going through the list of movies that are remakes or reimaginings, reboots, whatever, of TV shows from the 70s and 80s, and literally they've all been done. They have all been done. You name a TV show from the 70s or 80s that they have not made into a new movie.
Murder, She Wrote.
See if you can guess the one that I found. What's that?
Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote, that's fair. MASH, I guess. They didn't do a MASH either.
I don't know that you would really risk redoing MASH, though.
Yeah. I wouldn't risk redoing Murder, She Wrote. The only one I could really think of was Quantum Leap.
Oh yeah,
and that's such a good one.
That would be a great one to. Oh, you could even have Scott Bakula come back. He's still young enough to do that. Wow,
he could come Bakula to the role. But yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, wait, we're doing Charlie's Angels again, and we still haven't done a Quantum Leap. I was also like, oh, Chips? They've never done Chips? But then I'm like, oh, wait, they did Chips.
They did Chips, yeah.
Yeah, Dak Shepard as Chips.
There's some of these remakes, like, I mentioned in our pre-chat, like, there's the Tom and Jerry movie that they made with Abigail Breslin, and I wonder what the movie studios are thinking about, like, what kind of audience they're trying to court when they do some of these remakes. Like how many people remember what Tom and Jerry are? Like, I'm 41, and I don't think I've ever seen an actual episode of Tom and Jerry. Like, it's not even nostalgic for me at all. And like, kind of same with Charlie's Angels. Like, I don't remember seeing a single episode on TV. Like, I guess there's maybe some people have got nostalgia for the Drew Barrymore and Lucy Liu one, but I don't know. It's been so long, and I don't think that they were like slam dunk hits. I think famously the second one was terrible, if I recall correctly. So yeah, it doesn't. Sometimes it just I don't understand what the movie studios are trying to accomplish.
I'm curious, was it Elizabeth Banks' idea? Did she want to do it specifically?
I mean, could be.
Don't know.
She wrote and directed it. So it might have been a passion project, which is fair enough.
Yeah, maybe she's because there is a weird crack about her age in the movie. Maybe she is exactly old enough to have deep fond memories of Charlie's Angels, or it was my cynical part of me thinks maybe it was just more like they had this as a property. She's like, please let me write and direct a action comedy, or just like action movie. It's not really a comedy, but just like this cool action heist fighty movie. And to get the interest was like, we can tack the Charlie's Angels names on it, makes it a little more bankable. It's also, this movie's full of product placement, like pretty gratuitous product placement. And I wonder if it was just like, she knew she could make the movie, that she'd get to make the movie if she just like played ball. I don't know.
How much do you think Altoids paid for their sponsorship? Because that Altoids canister is in a good chunk of this movie.
That's a weird product placement. They discontinued the best flavor, so what's even the point?
Yeah.
I think the one that felt gross, like, so we're going to choose my words more carefully here. I think the one that felt the most inappropriate to me was when they get that nurse lady, the ambulance full of medical supplies, a lot of them like feminine hygiene products and like products like women would need, women in need would need. And there was a Tampax and 7th generation toilet paper, like zoomed in on the logos. And I'm like, this is a gift for an NGO. And you're like, it's a Tampax gift for an NGO. Just seemed a little tasteless, but as we mentioned, directed by Elizabeth Banks, written by Elizabeth Banks, stars Kristen Stewart, Naomi Scott, and Ella Balinska as the titular angels, with, of course, Elizabeth Banks as one of the Bosleys, Patrick Stewart as the other Bosley, and
Jimon Hansu as the other Bosley.
Thank you. I did the Google Translate or the Google pronunciation thing earlier, and then 20 minutes went by and I forgot it. So thank you for the save. Yeah, I think there's lots to discuss, but let's go to the trailer, and when we come back, we'll talk Charlie's Angels.
Who are you? I'm Bosley. Welcome to the Townsend Agency. We exist because traditional law enforcement can't keep up.
I don't like that, boy.
You guys are like lady spies. Jane's former MI6. Oh, God.
What did you do to Sven?
I compressed his carotid and deoxygenated his brainstem.
Well, that sounds painful.
Don't worry. He's gonna wake up.
Unless he doesn't.
Sabina runs the ground game. See, I know stuff.
Here we go! We in it together, but don't call me Angel.
Good morning, angels.
Good morning, Charlie.
Leading his angels one last time in the heroic capture of yet another international criminal, it was time for Bosley to retire. His longtime colleague Bosley threw him a lovely retirement party, and with that, Bosley's storied career at the Townsend Agency was over. Meanwhile, angels Sabina and Jane are tasked by Bosley to protect a whistleblower named Elena. She's a Brock Corporation engineer who helped build an Alexa, which causes heart attacks. When an assassin makes an attempt on Elena's life, Bosley is killed trying to protect her. Sabina, Jane, and Elena turn to Bosley for help in tracking down Bosley's killer. Little do they know that Bosley was secretly trying to steal the aneurysm box the whole time. Bosley and the Angels must confront Bosley before Bosley uses the box to become the greatest Bosley who ever Bosleyed.
Yeah, that was I liked that choice, frankly. As much as we ribbed on it, I'll start off with that. I like the fact that there's a bunch of them named Bosley and it's a title. That endeared me.
I'm torn on this because on the one hand, I did like that. And it riffs on the fact that Bosley's been played by different actors in the past, which made shoehorning Patrick Stewart into the previous movies as the same Bosley that much more egregious and stupid. Because he could have just been a different Bosley. It would have been fine. You could even establish that he's a long-running Bosley. He's been there since the beginning, but he's not the same Bosley as the Bosleys from the previous Charlie's Angel ones.
Do you think that's what they were trying to imply with that picture? I just thought at one point he would have worked with those agents.
No, it was explicitly shots from the previous movies with him photoshopped in, and from the old TV show with him photoshopped in. So yeah, they were definitely trying to suggest it's the same guy.
I couldn't tell whether it was supposed to be a joke, like, within the context of the movie, Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know whether it was supposed to be a joke to the characters. Like, because they were,
No.
everything was photoshopped so poorly.
Yeah.
If
I would agree with you that it's so badly done that it looks like they must be ribbing him, except that they are using it to specifically establish that he is the original Bosley. Like, that's part of the plot. So yeah, they're really trying to sell that he's the guy who's been there all along. And again, having built in the idea that there are all these other Bosleys, and the fact that Bosley has, without comment, been played by different actors in different movies, it just made it more egregious that they were trying to do that. And it really, it didn't land for me.
This is very silly.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if I liked it as being this kind of massive organization overall. Like, I don't know. That just, I don't know. Like, somehow the concept seems to work a little bit better for me when it's like if it was like a smaller group of spies. Like, I don't know. It just I don't know. It made the organization feel weird to me somehow, and I can't quite put my finger exactly on why.
Here's one of the reasons why it was weird for me, is because the Townsend Agency was a trio of kick-ass lady detectives who would take on jobs pro bono because they were being bankrolled by an eccentric millionaire with deep pockets who wanted to help people. When they spin it out into this giant global spy agency that is still working pro bono, how are they bankrolling that? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, they say they're an NGO, so I guess they're getting donations from
maybe, I guess,
a spy agency, sort of like getting donations. Yeah, it's
I think
weird.
It's just like I was thinking about it, like the problem, the call had to be coming from inside the house because this is so, like, other than these weird pictures trying to tie it in canonically, it is a fairly like self-contained spy story, and so to like one of the characters we meet is this old Bosley. That I understand the desire to have the threat tie back to the agency, because otherwise it would just be three nosy ladies going and fucking up some criminal's day. So it gives that it's a cheap and easy way to make it a closed loop and a personal connection.
But they could have also had it be the Elizabeth Banks Bosley. Like, that switcheroo seemed so unnecessary to me. They make you think that it's Elizabeth Banks, and then it turns out it's Patrick Stewart. But I don't see why that reveal was necessary, because he disappears for like half the movie.
Yeah, that's the reason it doesn't work, is because we don't get enough time with him. And that's treading on the toes of my fix, actually. But
Okay.
I think the swerve with Elizabeth Banks is smart. I just don't think it's executed very well in the movie. And I do have an idea for how to fix that. But that's for later in the podcast. Stay tuned.
Yeah, I think, like, because it's Charlie's Angels specifically, and because it's like this one guy who's like building this organization. It's like that idea that like it's just it's one dude sort of building it all up makes it feel weirder to me that it's all women. Do you know what I mean? Just like, because like in a corporation, like if like a dude surrounded himself with a bunch of hot kick-ass women, you'd be like, that guy's gross. Like, he's just like a weird pervy dude.
Which, I mean, fair criticism for Charlie, but makes it even more weird when you consider that most of the Bosleys are men, but none of the Angels are, and the Bosleys are the lieutenants and the facilitators.
I don't
yes.
know. That scene with all of them in the thing, it was about 50-50, which I thought was interesting. That the Bosley, anyone can be a Bosley, but like Angels, like she pontificates at the beginning that people never suspect women before they register them as a threat.
Yeah.
But just, it does also have I got an agency full of girls.
Yeah,
they're gonna kick ass. They're gonna do the work for me. Like
if it's a smaller group, then it's not. Yeah, it doesn't really invoke that sort of like CEO abusing his power kind of thing to me. Like, if it's just like, if it's just like three women, like, yeah, he just happened to find three really awesome spies. Perfect.
But this movie does, spoiler alert, does reveal Charlie to be a woman, actually.
Well, at least the current Charlie. It's mentioned the original Charlie Townsend had died.
Yeah.
Yeah, the action in this movie was I liked the setting for some of it. Like the in the coffee shop was fun. Her sliding down the quarry was fun. I think staged nicely, but did anyone else have a hard time really being like, at least the action's good?
No.
Or am I off base here?
No, I got very frustrated with the assassination scene. The one in which they're protecting Naomi Scott's character.
Elena.
Yeah, and like there was like the spatial awareness was not there. Like everything was shot really tight in kind of that Paul Greengrass style, but just so much of it that like I had no idea. Like there's a car chase and I had no idea where the two cars were in relationship to one another. Mm-hmm. And there was a good long stretch where like they were cutting back and forth between one car and the other shooting at one another, but never showing them together in the same shot. And it started to feel a little ridiculous. Like it started to feel really fake because it was as if they were shooting at nothing, because I had no idea where they were. I don't know. Like most of the action I felt was, at best okay, and sometimes not very well shot.
I also thought the action was like weirdly brutal, but they also didn't go brutal with it. I'm thinking specifically of the dude that fell in the rock grinder thing.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he fell in is horrific, and then they cut away right away, which is fine, I guess, but I'm like, I was watching it with someone who was like, this should have been an R rating. We should have seen a spurt of blood and heard the bones grinding. And like, if they had really leaned into that could have been an interesting way to do it.
Kristen Stewart was wearing white over top. She was prime for a spray of blood.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved if that was the aesthetic. Like if it was like this poppy bubblegum Charlie's Angels thing, but it was also R rated, that would have been great.
Or just, I guess, don't have people die so gratuitously, because the other one was the guy falling on the ice.
Oh yeah,
where there's a full scene where they're like two people are talking, and in between the two heads, there's just a guy impaled on the ice with no blood, just like no blood. No one's also stopped to like get him off or check if he's maybe okay. Just though they leave the body there while they have a flirty conversation.
Yeah, it's like they wanted to be an R-rated movie, but someone was like, it should be PG-13, though.
Yeah, it's surprisingly bloodless for the level of brutality, yeah.
Did anyone pick up on, like, the Charlie's Angels as an organization couldn't really decide how they felt about murder?
Yeah.
Right?
It's frowned upon, we'll say.
Sort of.
And then a lot of murder happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're also pretty cavalier about people dying. Like they go out of their way a couple times to tell you that characters that had, been in the opposing end of a pretty brutal, punch, kick or whatever, and they tell you that they're okay. But then at the same time, there's that the scene where I forget the character's name. Oh, Jane. She puts someone to sleep with a dart or one of those Altoid things. I don't remember what it was. And then the character of Elena is concerned that the person is dead, and she starts joking around that like, well, he might be, we don't know. And like it was just like it was that donut guy. It was the guy who got the donuts that she
Vulcan neck pinches him.
That's right. That's what it is. And that felt like especially like kind of egregious because he was just like an innocent guy, and you're like, oh, maybe he's dead. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, like, even when Elena set off the oh man, what is it actually called? The Alexa device.
Callisto?
Callisto. When she sets it off and gives the guy a stroke or an aneurysm or something, and then she was like, I murdered a guy, and they're like, no, you're fine.
He was totes dead. He was dead.
Yeah.
Oh, it's they smash cut to him being pulled away in a body bag. Like,
Yeah, they play it as a joke. And I don't
They
think he
super
was
do.
that bad a dude.
Yeah, he was just a creep.
Hey, a little skeevy, but he probably didn't deserve a brain aneurysm.
He was just doing his job. Like, he was just running security for
He's
that
being
company.
a creep about it, but he was doing his job. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess this might be the point to maybe discuss that this movie's themes definitely traffics in female empowerment, female capability.
Yeah, it's not subtle about it either.
Did you get that from the montage of children at the beginning of the movie?
Did you get it from the very first line of the movie being like, I think women can do anything men can do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Anita groaned when she was watching the beginning of this movie.
it's a very marketable kind of feminism, and that's what makes it shallow. It's not actually subversive, it's not speaking truth to power, it's just very glitzy, girl boss, get women CEOs, let's have capitalism prop up women as well as men and still perpetuate all of the horrible things that come along with it.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say it, because I'm like, it felt shallow to me too, but I'm like, do I get to decide if this is shallow or not? Is that my judgment to levy? And so I'm glad you corroborated what my gut said, but what my brain said, hey, maybe don't articulate, or at least don't articulate first.
My wife Erin called it white feminism the movie, and so yeah, like I felt justified in having that sort of thought as well. Like it feels like a girl power movie on the level of like Spice Girls, like that kind of feminism, like certain like sort of early 2000s
Yeah.
feminism.
And like I said, very marketable.
Yeah, and I noticed that the gaze of the movie still felt like a very male gaze. And I don't know.
I got that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least just a vain one. Like, the costumes and the outfits are great. Like, they look great, and there are a lot of fun outfits. But it does have some of that, like, Barbie's got a new hat fun outfits, as opposed to, like, that's still a type of gaze. That's still a very, like, whether we're starting at her calves and, like, looking at her curves, or we're, like, starting at her boots and looking at her dress, it's still a very, like, surface level way to look at women.
I will say that's kind of baked into Charlie's Angels, though, because even as far back as the original Charlie's Angels, there was an aspect of glamorousness to it. And so, like, keeping with, like, the fabulous clothes and stuff kind of tracks. It's kind of part of the brand. I'll give it that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I brought this up in the pre-talk, and I'll talk about it now. I think that this film really plays with the idea of female wish fulfillment, which is where you see, like, self-insert characters. That idea that, like, women get criticized for a lot in their own fiction is giving the characters an opportunity to be powerful and glamorous and perfect and at their, desirable and all these things, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. But there are much better movies that have done a better job of it, I think, than this one.
Do you think then if they had, like, would it have, how do I articulate this? The wish fulfillment and its relationship to the, like, message of empowerment and that, like, shallow, modern, white, marketable feminism. Do you think they're mutually exclusive? Do you think they go hand in hand? Could we, like, cut one and keep the other? Or, like, do we have to do one properly to make the other one justifiable?
That's a really good question. I feel like you can do female wish fulfillment with lots of different things. I don't think it has to be attached to this, like, shallow, marketable kind of, like, if you look at something like, I don't know, Captain Marvel, I think there was quite an element of female wish fulfillment in that, and an element of white feminism. I'm not going to lie about that, but I think it did a better job of walking that line, for example.
Sure. Or I guess, like, instead of shallow, marketable feminism, meaningful, impactful feminism, obviously would be a great inclusion in any movie. But, like, could you could you just do female wish fulfillment without doing either feminism, good or bad? Like, do you think that exists in any spectrum?
I think so, but I think there is an inherent feminism in female wish fulfillment because we don't see it very often. Like, the standard is male wish fulfillment. That's the way we do a lot of action movies, superhero movies. That's what those are. And so just by the very fact of having it be a woman is subversive. So there is an inherent amount of feminism in that just by virtue of it being, because it's not the standard.
Valid. Sweet. Then yes, perhaps then the fix will have to be how do we actually impart meaningful values and not shallow marketable values so that we can have this, fun wish fulfillment fantasy come to life in a way that isn't cringy to watch at points.
Yeah, I remember like years ago as I was kind of getting better about learning about the woman's perspective in film and how unfair it is. I think it was watching a Anita Sarkeesian video where she pointed out like there's not a lot of equivalents of the male power fantasy for women or kind of a movie that's I think the example she used was like or the one that I used since then is Star Trek the new reboot with Chris Pine, where it's all about his destiny. Like he's got like his father was a captain and he's destined to be a captain. And like you think of like there's not really a lot of movies like that for women where they're the ones who are destined for greatness and they're inheriting that from their parents or whatever. So like there's a lot of like different like you say, like just that kind of wish fulfillment doesn't really exist on the same level.
Well, in one movie that I haven't seen, but which I understand tackles that, is actually Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, really?
Which, I mean, got panned, right? People thought it was horrible. And I haven't seen it, so I can't speak to that. But I understand that, like, from a wish fulfillment perspective, it is about a woman destined for greatness.
Right, because I believe Mila Kunis's character is like she's a queen, right? Or she's like because she has DNA, like it's something about like her DNA matches up with the ancient queen, and then she's destined to become the ruler of whatever a universe or something like that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, there's I'm glad we broached that. I think we perhaps even maybe did more than the movie did. But then there's also this whole weird action movie attached to it as well. That's also riddled with holes. So why don't we go to break? Oh, go ahead.
Before we go to break,
Yes.
I would like to address.
So I have to pause.
I would like to address the cast because I think. And I believe I may have an unpopular opinion here, that the cast is pretty good in this movie, and I found them quite charming. I think Kristen Stewart was fantastic. I think the other two angels do a pretty great job with what they've got. I think Elizabeth Banks is delightful. I loved the character of the Saint, and I want to have more of that. The only person who kind of felt weird for me was Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
It felt like he was in a different movie, and he was clearly making choices, and maybe it's because we didn't get enough of him in the film, but it just wasn't working for me. And it's really a weird take to say Patrick Stewart was the weakest performance in this film. But I know that Greg disagrees with me.
I hard disagree on two things. Like, first of all, the Saint, really? The CEO of Goop as M, like it's just like that's the worst. That was the worst part of the movie by far. I thought it
was hilarious. I thought it was delightful.
Oh yeah, me and Aaron were just like, this is so weird. It just I don't know. It was
the reason.
Like
the reason
worst
it worked
things
for me,
about like health and all that kind of stuff rolled into like one character, and like it not being.
That's the reason it worked for me, because it was so out of left field and it was so weird.
But I also think that like Patrick Stewart, if he had more of the movie to to do his thing, I think it would have worked better. But like he actually kind of saved the movie for me, because I was actually throughout the second act getting really bored and not having a lot of fun. And his choices that he made in the third act is sort of when the movie kind of came alive for me. Once he went full villain and having a lot of fun playing sort of like a gleeful villain. You know, that was working for me. It kind of saved it a bit.
I actually said to Anita after the movie, I liked the core cast of this film enough that I would be willing to give a sequel a shot. And I don't say that often about movies that I don't like, but I didn't hate this movie, and I thought that the core cast was charming enough that I'm like, give them another script, give them another shot. I might not rush out to the theaters to see it, but you'd be able to twist my rubber arm. I'd go and see a sequel to this movie. I'd give them another chance because I thought that they were charming and I thought that they were trying, and I appreciate that.
That's trying, I think, is the key word there, and it's been listeners of the show will recognize always. I hate it when it seems like people are like phoning it in for a paycheck, and it does seem like everyone here showed up, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And can I my little gay heart, Kristen Stewart was so good. She was there like for me specifically to enjoy. With her cool haircut and her leather jackets and her motorcycle and her weird silks thing at the very beginning, and then she rode a horse. Oh my god.
Yeah, the blonde wig and then the short hair, yeah. And just even the way she like in the gym scene when she steals that guy's gym thing and then she like checks out a woman walking by and then carries on. I thought it was a nice little touch where they're like, don't harp on it. They just add this little detail, and that one of the few details we got about any of these characters. She's one of.
I thought it was funny that she was like her character was almost a side character. Like she doesn't really have an arc, but she was also like very clearly like a cut above everyone else in terms of like her performance. Mm-hmm. You know, I felt like that anyway. I felt like she was easily outshining everyone else.
If anything, the arc is Jane's and to an extent Elena's, and what's her kid? Sabine is kind of just there as an accessory to the two of them in a way, because she's very fully realized coming into the movie in a way that's, I mean, good. She's a great character, and Kristen Stewart is clearly having a blast playing her. So yeah,
it's just weird. I think it almost feels like that happened by accident. Like the movie didn't necessarily intend for Kristen Stewart to be the least developed character, and it just kind of happened.
I do you feel like she's the least developed? Because I feel like she was the most. I feel like most of the characters in this movie, from Patrick Stewart to Elizabeth Banks, it's a lot of stuff just happening at them, and there's not a lot of emotional reactions to anything except for the one big, like, the scene where someone's crying. No one really seems affected by anything. And so just the fact that she was kind of quirky and funny and had style made her leaps and bounds, I feel, more developed than anyone else. Because at least she had, like, something going on, where the rest of them were kind of just, like, good guys, bad guys, all of them. They're not real big characters in this movie, and I think she stands out because she's the only character. To be honest, I don't know what choices you're talking about with Patrick Stewart. He seemed like he was just like, I'm going to Patrick Stewart up these lines. Go now.
Oh no, because he was devouring scenery by the end of the movie, like just hoovering it up, and that was clearly a choice.
Yeah, I mean, he was he was kind of a very, once he became a villain, it was a very flamboyant performance, I think. Like, I don't know, I think he definitely elevated himself a little bit. Never mind. I was going to mention something that happened in Star Trek Picard, but nobody's seen it and nobody will get it. So we'll forget that.
Cool. Well, we'll be back with our fixes for Charlie's Angels.
Egg Podfest is back October 1st through 3rd, presented by the Edmonton Community Foundation in partnership with the Alberta Podcast Network and LitFest. The event will be held online this year, so anyone can tune in to experience it. Events include masterclasses with professional podcasters, panel discussions, featured interviews, and more. Plus, some APN members will be there too, including this show's very own Scott C. Bourgeois. So to check out the full lineup and get tickets, head over to yegpodfest.ca. That's yegpodfest.ca. With PodPower, our sponsors are making it possible to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. This episode, the Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a PodPower shout-out to Your Forest. Your Forest is a podcast about the natural world. Hear stories about the environment, renewable resources, conservation, forestry, hunting, fishing, and more. This is a podcast for those who cannot live without the joys and wonders of all things wild. Find Your Forest wherever you get your podcast or at yourforestpodcast.com. That's yourforestpodcast.com.
Welcome back to I Have Some Notes, Charlie's Angels. How do we fix this movie? That is definitely something needs to be fixed, because there's...
I'm going to start because I've got to
be left.
I'm going to start because I have a structural fix that I think makes the movie a little tighter and fixes the third act. Because as it stands, one of my criticisms about the plot at present is that the twist doesn't really land. And it's because while I do like the swerve with Elizabeth Banks, we just don't spend enough time with Patrick Stewart for the reveal that he's the villain to really, it's flat. I feel nothing. And I think that the fix for that is that you take Jimon Hansu and Patrick Stewart's Bosleys and you make them the same Bosley. So what you have is Bosley isn't retiring at the beginning of the movie, but he is nearing retirement. And you make that clear. He's getting older. He's going on like one of his he's getting close to retirement. He's so close to retirement. This is going to be his last job. You play into that trope that he's like 2 weeks to retirement, so that he goes on this mission. He's part of this initial meet with Elena. He gets attacked with them by Hodak, and he appears to get killed. And that's the big shocking thing. Oh my God, Bosley's dead. And then through the second act, you play it like Elizabeth Banks comes in and takes over, and she's acting squirrely, and people start to get suspicious, and maybe she's not on the level. Maybe she's the one who killed Bosley because she's a bad guy. And then twist, he's still alive, and he plays it off initially as, oh, I faked my death because I knew Elizabeth Banks Bosley was bad and she was up to something. You should come with me because I will keep you safe. Twist, I'm actually the villain and now you're in my clutches. That makes the twist work better. It gives us more time with the evil Bosley so that the reveal that he's the villain hurts more and is more personal, and it makes the swerve with Elizabeth Banks work better. And I think that solves a lot of problems. You just get rid of a Bosley and merge Jimon Hansu and Patrick Stewart into one Jimon Stewart, and away you go.
Brilliant. I think that's better than...
Agreed.
But I'm not even going to say mine. I like that better. That's nice and tidy. And you're right. We spend more time with him, so we get to know not only his motivation, but because they tried to set up that Jane had some sort of connection to that third Bosley.
Yeah,
and that's not character motivation.
Well, and now it's an even worse betrayal for her, because first she thinks her mentor is dead and maybe was killed by this other Bosley, and then twist, her mentor is actually the villain. Oh no! That's so much worse.
That gives her some character.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that is the big change that tightens up the script so much and fixes a lot of the third act. And I think there's still other stuff that could be shored up, and I'm sure you have a bunch of suggestions, but that's my big fix.
I like that.
One of the tweaks that I'd like to see is to add some conflict between Sabina and Jane. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just because there's nothing it would add a lot more to the dynamic if they were at odds with one another. I thought one of the ways you could do it is in that opening scene where they're foiling the international embezzler, right? if she's kind of like playing around with him and kind of like, goofing around a little bit too much, and then Jane decides to take upon it herself to enter in too early, then you have this sort of like this scene. You could have a fun scene where the two of them are sort of like trying to outdo each other to finish off the villains, but also like upset with one another for not respecting each other's methods. And then you automatically right off the bat get a good conflict between the two of them. And then when they're forced to work with each other, you can continue that. And that's sort of their art throughout, is just sort of learning how to work with one another.
That would then add some actual authenticity to the crying scene that in the film as it currently stands didn't actually have any of the buildup that it said it had. When Jane said, "You taught me that I need to have friends," I literally screamed "when" at my screen. I don't know, maybe it was a deleted scene, but we better put that scene back in with this conflict.
It's interesting you say that, because I didn't really consider that, but you're right. They almost kind of set up that there's a bit of a methodological conflict between them, but it's like an aborted arc. We don't see it. And it would be interesting if, like you say, like they have a conflict, but maybe it's because Sabina's such like a by the seat of her pants, loosey-goosey, feeling it out, doing things like her way sort of agent, whereas Jane is like coming out of MI6. She's very by the book, very disciplined, and part of their journeys and this could give Sabina character development, which we felt was a little missing, is Sabina needs to learn how to work with a team and work a little bit more by the book, and Jane needs to learn to loosen up and be able to do things a little more, to improvise a little more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a little tropey, but I think it would work. I was going
to say, the fact that that's like a incredibly broad trope that's been done a billion times in any good cop bad cop thing is a fix, I think speaks to how little substance is going on in the emotion of the
tropes
movie.
are not inherently bad.
Yeah,
there's a reason cliches are cliches.
Yeah.
They're especially useful in action movies where usually the plot is pretty razor thin and you're trying to get from action scene to action scene. So like they work really well at like getting you to where you want to go and just letting people sink in and really enjoy all the car chases and gunfights and people getting ground up by rock crushers.
Yeah, it's a narrative shorthand.
Glenna?
I kind of brought this up in the first half, but like, make it R-rated. Just like you could tell they wanted to. It was an R-rated movie trapped within a PG-13 movie, and I think just like exactly what Greg said, a completely campy, over-the-top, totally violent Charlie's Angels is something that would have been a delight. Would it have been like great cinema? Probably not, but I think it would have really energized some of those action scenes that felt a little flat if they had, especially with the guy dying on the spike already in the movie. I was like, oh, they wanted to do this the whole time. So I think if they just like really leaned into it, that would have give it more energy.
It would have been an interesting juxtaposition too between like the glamour and the comedy. And then also this just intensely brutal violence, which almost turns slapstick at that point because it's like an action comedy. Yeah. So, and I think that an audience would have been receptive to, like, we went and saw Suicide Squad, and it's very gory, but it's also very funny. And so the gore comes off more slapsticky than horrifying. And I think that you could have done a similar thing here.
Yeah. I don't recall, was Birds of Prey PG-13 or R?
R.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and it worked. Yeah.
Oh, they say the F word more than once in that movie.
It's swears and the violence in that one. Right, one I feel like would have been PG-13 if there wasn't swear words.
I don't know.
Yeah, man blows up at the end.
Oh right, you're right. I'm misremembering all sorts of things. We're not talking about that movie. Speaking of people blowing up and things, correct me if I'm wrong, but they use the device, the Calypso or Callisto, Calypso, I think, device.
Callisto, yeah.
Callisto. Not Calypso like the music, Callisto like the Flockhart. They she's like, oh, she hacks it when Patrick Stewart makes her hack it and to set it up to kill her and the guy who's tied up. And then she's like, oh no, I just made it blink and beep. Right? And then the guy falls on the ice. Mr. Brock gets shot or something, I think, by...
Nope, he's still alive at the end.
Oh, he's still alive at the end, right? And then how did they get Patrick Stewart? Can you refresh my memory?
He beats Elizabeth Banks in a very brief and stiff fist fight. And then is like, and then all the security guys surround them, and he's like, "You're outmanned," and she's like, "Yeah, well, you're outwomaned," and the lights go out, and everybody's been Altoided because all of the women at the party were angels who were secreted in because she had cut a deal with Australian Johnny.
Thank you.
Another great character, might I add.
I wanted to confirm that because the last time, the reason I took all those steps, the last time we see the device, the main MacGuffin of this movie, is when she programs it to just blink and flicker on and off or whatever and make noises. I would have liked to see that device be part of how they defeat anyone in any way. Because it is really ramped up as this big, gnarly, intense weapon, and they use it one time on the asshole security guard. And it never, for such a huge stakes MacGuffin, it is very rarely used in any way that is interesting.
They don't even necessarily have to kill someone with it at the end, but use it in an interesting way would be neat.
Like maybe it's implied that's how they turn off the lights and then they turn them back on and everyone fell down from Altoids. But like, yeah, use it in some meaningful way. Have it somehow come back in part of the plot, because it was a MacGuffin in the truest sense in that it did almost nothing. It was one step above Magic Rock. Like,
I will say, I feel like we were cheated out of a cool fight scene at the end. When all of the lady party guests turned out to be angels, I feel like they could have fought the security guys, and that would have been much more dynamic. But obviously, that's not what the movie was going for. So
yeah, so that'd be about my only fix, because I had a Bosley note that I just like yours better, Scott. It's super tight. So
thank you.
Speaking of things that they introduced but didn't really go anywhere, I would like to delete the golden collar.
Thank you. Oh my god. I kept being like, there's got to be a chance to bring this up. There's got to be a chance to bring this up. The weird golden collar leash thing that wasn't even like that's got to be someone's bedroom toy, right? That was just brought out cuz I can't think of any other reason for it to exist.
It's very Slave Leia.
Yeah, it's just a real shallow. It was just like, I chalk it up to that same line of like the movie starting with her looking at the camera going, I think a woman can do anything a man can do. It was just like that shallow on the nose. Yeah. Oh, women are subjugated, so we're gonna put her in a collar. It's like all bark, no bite in its commentary, like, and it's not that I'm against,
Like, I guess there's no reversal on it. Like, there's no reversal of the collar. Like, does she ever even have to get out of it?
No,
like, it's just in there to be gross for gross sake. That's what I object to it. Mm-hmm.
And you even kind of hit the nail on the head there. It would have been interesting if she had somehow gotten out of the collar and used it to help defeat Patrick Stewart. Because then at least symbolism and not just weird and gross.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If she put it on him, start dragging him around, and that's how on the nose the movie wants to be. So you might as well do it.
No, shackle him to the desk and be reveal this is just beeping and flashing, but it won't now, as she reprograms it and leaves the room.
For sure, yeah.
Because murder is okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty cavalier about it already, so why not?
Yeah.
We mentioned the cast earlier, and I just want to give serious props to the actor who they have playing Hodak, who unfortunately I don't have my Letterboxd open at the moment, and I don't have his name. But he has serious Robert Patrick vibes, and if they ever remade Terminator 2, that is the guy you hire to play the T-1000 Terminator. Anita literally thought it was Robert Patrick at first. She's like, is that the Terminator guy? No, that's definitely not, but he is giving some serious Terminator energy.
I think we were looking him up because he was in Justified. I kind of laughed every time I heard his name because it sounds so much like a He-Man toy.
Hordak.
Hordak. Oh yeah.
He's got one of those good villain faces too, right? Like it's very angular, sort of like asymmetrical. Like it's a good villain look. You know,
He looks like a hitman. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what else I would have liked to see? Like, I know they added a Kristen Stewart checking out a woman at the gym, but I don't know. They gave Jane a love interest. Why not give Sabina like a lady to woo?
Yeah.
Did they not imply at the end that Elena was interested in Sabina?
Was that implied?
I thought there was like a almost kiss between them in that like last montage where they were like training her.
Oh, I don't know.
It went by. It was like after they landed on the plane, after she had landed the plane, when they all jump out and leave her to fly it herself. I thought there was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, if it was there, it went by too quickly. And if we're gonna do that, double down and do it. Make it an actual plot line.
Yeah.
I didn't mention this earlier either. I would cut the training montage at the end because I thought it was really self-indulgent and dumb, and I did not care for it.
Yeah.
I think you could have kept the little like post-credit scene maybe where she earns her wings and say that she's completed training. I don't think you need to like say, oh, well, Ronda Rousey is also an angel and Danica Patrick is also an angel and Ruth Bader Ginsburg is also an angel. I was just like, now you're just patting yourself on the back.
All the best women.
It's
I was
real
confused
gross
by that scene because I was like, I know I'm supposed to recognize these women, and a part of me was like, is that Ronda Rousey? I couldn't pin Danica Patrick or anyone. So in my mind, as they're going through all these different like ladies training her, I'm like, are these all the women who played the angels?
And it should have been. If you were going to keep that montage, there should have been a Cameron Diaz cameo and a Drew Barrymore cameo.
That's what I was expecting, because the one lady was like old enough that I was like, oh, you were probably an actress in the 70s. Wait, no, that's Ronda Rousey. Is Drew Barrymore going to show up? I don't know what's happening here, but now she's landing a plane, and Kristen Stewart's back. Okay, well, I'm glad this movie is over. Yeah, that was.
It was mostly. I didn't hate it. The montage. It just like it was just kind of went on a little bit too long.
Yeah.
There was like 4 separate sequences. I think that. So yeah, it was. Someone pointed out that when we get to listener comments that it was like the fun stuff that the rest of the movie should have had.
Yeah. Well, speaking of then, I think we've definitely whipped up some canny notes to make this movie a little tighter, a little better. Because there's definitely it's not nothing. This movie had a lot of charm and a lot of style, and I think we've added a little bit of substance to it.
I think it just needed tightened up. In all honesty, I think Elizabeth Banks had the foundation of something good here. It just needed like maybe a couple more drafts. Yeah. And it would have been a much tighter movie. And I think that the weird pacing and the kind of flat third act are what really hurt it the most.
Yeah. But our listeners had comments as well. Thank you to everybody who contributed. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at I Have Some Notes, and on Instagram at I Have Some Notes Pod. That's where we will solicit your comments so that I can read them like I'm about to now. Nathan Martin comments, I remember really having fun with this movie. I actually laughed a couple times. Kristen Stewart looks like she is having the most fun she's ever had. But if you put me in a slow dripping machine above a vat of acid, I could not tell you what the plot of this movie was. I remember feeling like they combined the plot of the first 2 movies and crammed it into this one. Anyway, have fun.
Yeah, at risk of spoiling a later comment, Nathan is not the only person who said they watched this movie and the plot just slid off of them and they have no memory of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I was saying, the MacGuffin doesn't do anything. It could be anything in that briefcase. Yeah. Could be anything stolen from that lab. Yeah.
Well, I watched this movie on Saturday, and I was worried I wasn't going to remember it all for this recording.
Yeah. Mediocrity is the worst thing you want in art, right? Like you either want to be Scorsese or Neil Breen. You don't want to be in between.
Nathan is absolutely right, though, that Kristen Stewart is definitely having a blast in this movie.
Dallas Jordan Friesen comments, how did the helicopter catch her when she jumped off the building? Lol. Yeah.
I assume she was knocked down and then pushed off the side of the building into the helicopter.
It was a zip line, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Ziplining into a helicopter does seem like in any spy movie, there's excessive, nonsense, but that one, like, rotor blades are nothing to be fucked with. Maybe we don't zipline into helicopters after the mission is over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very fake-looking helicopter.
And a fake-looking Kristen Stewart in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They did not have the budget for that shot. That's for sure.
Or it was like, oftentimes, especially when a studio is really pushing for a deadline to get a movie out at a certain time, a special effects house will like send them the almost finished product so that they can proof it. And they'll be like, perfect, good, send it to post. And it's like, oh no, that wasn't the finished product. That actually happens more than you'd think. And that's why there are movies where you're like, the special effects are not good on that. And that's the reason why, because the production company is just like, good enough for us. Off to the theaters.
That's great.
Because we don't have time to make it better.
Flix X-Rayed says, more of the training montage that takes place in the credits and less of whatever the hell the rest of it was.
That's true. If the training montage, if like more of the movie was like the training montage, I think that would have been pretty fun.
It's just also, you would just prefer that it was also incredibly violent.
Yeah.
Robin at Cinematological, who I believe suggested this movie. Thanks, Robin.
He did, yes.
I said I was sorry for Blues Brothers 2000. I don't know why I'm still being punished. No. Robin says, tepid and sloppy, but filled with good intentions. Needed either better action or better comedy to feed a solid premise. Kristen Stewart was great and seemed to be in a different movie.
Hard agree. Basically, yeah. And I think we all kind of agreed that the comedy was fine. It needed more action to offset.
And heart and like real, meaningful, emotional stakes.
Yeah, fair enough. That too.
Jay Runham says, I haven't seen it, but I assume it needs more Patrick Stewart in it.
Yes, in that
I mean,
that
like,
character,
literally, yes.
we need more time with that character. So yeah. But I don't know if I would keep Patrick Stewart and instead maybe keep Jimon Hansu, and that might just be because I really like Jimon Hansu. Mm-hmm. But overall, yes, that character we needed more time with.
Aaron Beaver says, I get that we're trying to change it up and having a bunch of angels instead of 3, but the tone was really weird. It felt like a corporate video for recruiting teenage girls to join Blackwater or something.
It did feel like a recruiting video. That's a good point.
Especially the montage at the end, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, come be an angel.
Ladies and
Colin McIntyre, friend of the show, of course, dare I say, founder of the show, whose job I have so glad to have inherited, still coming in with the hot takes and comments. Mick G forever. Also, I know I've seen this, but I don't remember anything about it, which likely says a lot.
Yep.
Who's Mick G? What's Mick G?
Mick G is the director of both the previous Charlie's Angel films.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody who... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, at some point, Colin will be back on this season, so look forward to that. We're gonna, yeah.
We've been trying to net him for seasons now. He's just such a busy man.
Yeah.
But I'm available. Perfect. Thank you, everybody who commented once again. We solicit these on our social media, so follow us there. And thank you, Glenna, for joining us today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for having me. It was a fun time.
Of course, where else can we find you, your works and things on the internet?
Yeah, I am a member of the cast of Quantum Kickflip, an actual play Slug Blaster podcast, which is part of the Alberta Podcast Network. Which is the same network that this is on. And Liam's in it too. Come check us out.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can at Quantum Kickflip, just search it. You'll find it. It comes up. Google's good like that. And of course, while you're on Google looking for Quantum Kickflip, also look for our stuff. Not just our social media, but wherever you get your podcast. Please subscribe. Please leave us a review. It really does help us out.
Are you looking for more kick-ass women who look into crimes perpetrated by treacherous frauds? Then Scam Time would be right up your alley. It's a true crime podcast hosted by Stephanie Wolfe and Karen Johnson-Diamond. You can check them out right now at albertapodcastnetwork.com.
And the season of You Pick 'em continues. In 2 weeks, we're going to be doing Event Horizon. Prepping ourselves for spooky Halloweens with a sci-fi horror.
Until then, I have been your host, Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver. Keep watching the skies.